If you're ready to be inspired, educated, and challenged, come and put up a chair and join us at the Innovator table. Hello and welcome to the Innovator table. I'm your host, Toro Ferron. Thank you for putting up a chair joining me at the table. So this is the second episode in Innovators table, and if you haven't listened, so bear in mind this is a limited series, and for those that don't know what a limited series is, it's an episode. It's a series where the episodes don't coincide with each other. So, like, you could watch episode 1 and episode 10, and they won't like look like each other. If that makes sense, if that makes any sense, but you can go back and listen to episode 1 for if you're OCD like me and can't watch an episode and go straight to episode 10. I have to watch it from number 1. So if you do, go back to listen to episode 1. But on today's episode, I have Miss May, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Of course. So as Tyrell has said, I am Miss May. I am a maths teacher at Sedgefield Academy and deputy head of year 7 this year as well.
So the first question I think I've asked every single person that has come on the podcast, who is Miss May?
It's a good question. You asked me the essence of Miss May. So I would say I am a people person.
Mm-hmm.
I like being around people, doing things for people, both in work and outside of work. So I know we're going to talk a bit more about my background later, but I've not always been a teacher. I love teaching because I'm working with people, helping people, getting the best out of people, and that's what I've done throughout my whole career. But also in my personal life, kind of being there for my friends, for my family, basically a bit of a people pleaser, making sure that everyone is feeling their best, can bring their best to whatever life, school, work is throwing at them. So yeah, people, family, friends, really important to me.
Mm-hmm. So that was actually a similar answer to Coach Sterling, and what I could see from both answers is optimism. And obviously for those that don't know what optimism is, it's like believing things. So like the best way to explain it would be if you saw a glass of water and it was half, you would say it's half full, not half empty. So you would say there's still potential there. So I want to ask you, what are your core values? What drive you to be who you are today?
So again, I had to think about this before our chat, and we obviously have our school values, and they're a really nice, straightforward place to start. And when I see them around school every day, and think about whether they align to me, and I would say maybe I wouldn't use exactly those words, but what they stand for I would use. So hard work, putting 110% into things, and I like to go above and beyond and make sure I've done my absolute best to get the best outcome. I like to be busy, even if it's a bit stressful. I like the buzz of being busy and having lots of things to do. So that definitely is important to me and drives me. Integrity, so doing the right thing, making choices because they're the right thing to do, not the easy thing to do. And I think as I have got older, getting better balance between that integrity and being a people pleaser, because you can't always please everyone and do the right thing. So knowing kind of when to speak up, but with empathy and understanding, and do the right thing rather than just always trying to keep people happy. So that's been something that's been probably more of a shift for me over the last few years. And then linked to that is that we use kindness here, but I think being empathetic, listening to other people, understanding where they're coming from, taking in different points of view, so that you're working with people and alongside people, is definitely something that I value as well.
So diving more into your past career, what is business physiology?
Okay, so I was business psychology.
Oh, psychology.
There's lots of words with ologies.
I'm looking at the words. I don't know how to pronounce it, so that one sounded more right in my head, but
it's a funny one. It's PS, so it's I know how to spell it now because I've been studying psychology for lots and lots of years, but it's a weird word. So psychology at its basics is kind of around how we think and how that impacts our behavior. And so there are lots of different branches of psychology that you can go into. It influences how we are at school, the sorts of things we buy, how we develop as individuals, loads. I'm not going to go into psychology, but business psychology more specifically is around how we are in the workplace. So how we show up at work, how we work best. Do we like to work alongside other people and in teams? Do we prefer to be more an individual contributor? How can we build a environment for people to work well as in teams? So really for that, it was around assessing people and developing people to get the best for them and for their workplace. So how can they show up in their best way at work? By understanding how do they think and how does that impact their behavior.
So you said that it was Kiddy and Partners that you worked for, is that correct?
Yes.
You said they specialize in leadership assessment and development. So what does good leadership look like?
Oh, great question. So good leadership, I think, is back to that integrity piece. Doing the right thing. And having integrity helps people trust you. So being trusted by the people who follow you, but also trusting them, because trust is a two-way street. So trust is really important. Being a good communicator and a clear communicator. Again, that also links into the trust piece. If you're communicating things clearly, people are not going to be surprised by actions, by things that are going on in the business. That builds trust as well. And I think having that confidence and conviction. So you might have to deliver a difficult message or make a difficult decision. So having conviction and confidence in what your decision is, but the final thing is actually good problem solving skills, because you could be someone who's just fluffy and looks at a problem, doesn't look at it in detail, and decides that's what I'm going to do. And we have lots of politicians and various people in high places who are not brilliant leaders because they don't do that critical thinking, that problem solving, and they say rubbish with quite a lot of conviction. So problem solving and critical thinking in terms of like non-people skills, and then communication, trust, and integrity for people skills.
So in your email, I'm just looking at it now. It says you led on development programs both for the UK and internationally. So for the sake of our viewers, what are development programs? Like what type of development programs what did you do?
Yeah, great question. So we worked with, as I said, leaders, and they might have been in different businesses. So we worked a lot. One of my main clients was in the defense and aerospace sector. So huge clients who are responsible for basically selling and operating things that will help our UK defence. And so we would do programs with them where we would assess, so put them through some scenarios that mirror their day-to-day experiences, but which is a safe environment where they can have a go, and then they get feedback. Because you go and meet with a client, and a client, unless you're really rubbish in the meeting, is not really going to give you lots of really robust feedback. So that was really about giving people a chance to practice what their day-to-day looks like, but then giving feedback, which we don't always get when we're in busy work environments, and then helping people come up with a plan of, okay, this is what I'm good at, these are my strengths, but these are the things I want to work on so that I can have even better client meetings, even better relationships with my team, and then that would lead on to coaching conversations, and perhaps sometimes follow-up assessments to see have they taken on the feedback and improve. So that's one example of the sorts of things that we would deliver.
Okay. So back on
psychology.
Psychology. I need to psychology. The role of psychology. What is the role of psychology in the world around us?
Yeah, so it's everywhere. I think people have biases about their subject. So as a maths teacher, I would say maths is everywhere. And as a psychologist, I would say psychology is everywhere. If you think about how you interact with your friends at school, there's some thought processes going on in your head. We have things like groupthink. So if your friends are all saying that they like that prime drink that got really popular.
Yeah.
One person said that you kind of, your decisions are then influenced because you want to be like the people around you, that you really like this prime drink, and these sorts of things blow up. So we see it in that, in terms of the decisions we make around what we like, in terms of how we interact with people, in terms of you have a bit of a disagreement at home because your parents have asked you to tidy your bedroom and you haven't done, and it puts you in a bit of a grump, and then that influences your behavior, like your thinking, and you're feeling a bit grumpy influences your behavior in terms of how you show up at school. So yeah, like I said, when we're buying things in the shop, big companies are looking at our psychology, what drives what we want to buy. When we're looking at things on YouTube or TikTok, again, it's collecting data on how do we think, what are we going to want to follow when we're trying to change behavior across society. So stopping littering or stopping people from smoking, how can we kind of influence people's thinking so that that will therefore influence their behavior. So we're all thinking all the time and making decisions, and it's understanding why we're making those decisions, what's the thinking behind it in psychology. So it's everywhere.
So from listening to what you said, I've just had a little brainwave. I don't think I've ever asked anybody this question, but I've been seeing it a lot on TikTok, and obviously now we're moving into the world of AI. So we've got ChatGPT, we've got Amazon Fresh, where you don't even have cashiers anymore. You just on your phone. So how I don't know if fail-proof is the word to use, but how okay, if psychology is something, can AI do psychology? Is it something only humans could do, or is it something that AI could potentially take over?
I think as we get more, there's different parts. There's some things that we can be very specific on, like neuroscience is part of psychology. So understanding which parts of our brain are firing off and things, that is more computer data based. But I think psychology is really about understanding individuals and having that empathy piece as well. So although an AI bot, whatever it is, might be able to, if you think about another area that we think of psychology is in things like being a clinical psychologist, so people are having mental health challenges and things like that. A robot might be able to listen to their challenges and play back or prescribe some medication or whatever it might be, but the value of those conversations, having counselling or therapist, is that person-to-person interaction. So it is a very hands-on kind of, you need a relationship beneath some of the things. So there are parts like we would use things like psychometrics, which is where you get asked questions and that gives you just some data on this is the sort of person that you might be, but that is very much puts people in a box. And so we're never going to 100% fully understand exactly how our brains work or make hypotheses about if we do this then this happens. But I do think you are always going to need that human for lots of elements of it. Not, there are obviously some things that AI might take over, but there will be jobs for psychologists for a very long time, I think.
Okay, so just moving on for a second. So one of the, looking at the points I've sent you now, what was the transition from the city to a school environment like? So what, I was trying to give you an example, but I can't think of anybody who's done that. So what would you describe it to be like? Was it fine for you? Like what was it like?
Yeah, it's very different. So you go from an environment where I worked in the City of London around St. Paul's, where you walk out in your day-to-day and obviously everyone is adults because everyone is working in offices, and then you go to a school and 90% of the people around you are younger people and students. So just from a looking around perspective, that it looks like a very different environment. There are lots of similarities in terms of fast-paced, lots of juggling different responsibilities. So in the business world, you might have different clients, different internal meetings to be balancing, juggling to-do lists to get through with competing priorities. In school, you have the same. You have your classes that you need to teach, your prep for your classes, but then you have phone calls with parents and meetings with other teachers. So that juggling and prioritizing, I think the business world was good practice for some of those day-to-day things that kind of come up in any workplace. And for me, because I worked in a people-centric role before, I did a lot of leading of development programs. So some of that transition to being stood in front of, a class of 30 students was like my old job. It's just that they were 30 adults before. So there's lots of transferable skills in terms of prioritizing, in terms of communication. But it is obviously a very different environment in terms of how you have to show up, different type of professionalism to an extent.
So I'm looking at your email now, and you said that you completed your master's in
Occupational psychology.
Say it again, sorry.
Occupation. So like you have an occupation, teaching is my occupation. Occupational.
I don't know why I can't speak today, but
psychology.
Yeah. So from 2006 to 18. So
yeah.
So you said whilst working for Kiddy and Partners.
Yeah.
So what was that like? So is that university?
Yes. Yeah. So
go on. Yeah, go.
So typically when you kind of finish school, some people might go straight to university and do a bachelor's degree. So that's what I did in psychology.
Yeah.
And then some people will stay on straight away and go straight on to a master's. I went into the workplace because I didn't know whether I wanted to be a psychologist, to be honest, or exactly what sort of psychologist I wanted to be. So I went into the workplace. I found a job that was in business psychology, and I worked as a project manager rather than a psychologist, and decided I really liked the psychology side of things. So then I did my master's, which is the build on the bachelor's degree, and I therefore did that alongside my job for 2 years. So it was part-time doing the master's and then full-time work, and that then enabled me to move from managing projects and being sort of the organizer to then being more of the psychologist, delivering the projects and working more with people as individuals.
So I spoke to Mr. Peterkin about, so he's in Oxford as we speak now. And what is the admissions process like? Because, for example, my mum's been to university, I don't know how long, but I remember my mum, my dad, my nan's always on me about university.
Yeah.
But now we're in the day and age where a lot of people, I would personally say that a lot of people aren't really keen to go to university. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I don't think you have to go to university. I do think if you are not really sure what you want to do, and university is an option for you, then it is a good way of getting more expertise in an area. Sometimes you'll use it. I was lucky enough that I did then go on to use psychology. I have friends who did geography at university and then started working in recruitment and learning and development, which was similar to what I did, but they came from a very different course. But university still, although they don't directly use their geography degree, university still teaches you the skills of being a critical thinker, because you have to write essays, of planning your time effectively, because you have to, get your different coursework pieces in on time, your communication skills, because quite often you'll be writing essays again. So there's lots of skills that university teaches you, even if you don't use your subject, and it gives you that space and that extra qualification to start to then narrow about what you do want to do. But if you know what you want to do, then university, it's not the right option, the right thing to do. Different things work for different people. I liked that it gave me the space to work out what I wanted to do rather than choosing a job and feeling like, okay, this is my job and this is what I'm doing now. It gave me a bit more time to think about what do I really enjoy, what do I want to be.
So so hearing from what you said, you said you wanted, so sorry, you in 2020, that's when COVID was, am I right? Am I getting
Yes, it was. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It started in 2019. Yeah, 2020. So you transitioned from being in the city to the school environment during 2020. Why did you feel as that was the right year to do so?
So 2020 gave me some time to be thinking about what I was doing
Uh-huh.
and whether it was giving me the purpose
Uh-huh.
that or like fulfilling my purpose. So I liked what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
I liked when I was working with individuals.
Yeah.
Um, but because when COVID happened, the amount of work that we had was a little bit less because clients learning and development is important, but it's an easy thing to say, let's stop doing that for a little while because
Yeah.
we need to make sure that we can keep everyone's jobs and not spend money that's nice to have. So
Yeah.
it made me feel that my job was good and valuable to people when it happens, but the world can keep running without it.
Without it. Okay.
So it made me feel like maybe it wasn't completely fulfilling my purpose as much as I wanted it to. And I'd always had teaching in the back of my mind. So since school, it had always been one of the options on the table. But I decided that I wanted to go and try the business world first. I'd been at school since I was 5 to when I was 18. I knew what school looked like, so I wanted to go and try something different. But actually, it was always in the back of my mind. So I decided to come back to the school environment and see if I enjoyed it, which I
Yeah.
did.
So even so, from what you say, that's something I would like to do. So right now I'm doing work experience at JP Morgan, doing
Mm-hmm.
trainee as a financial advisor. And I do enjoy it, but even being I'm a prefect in Central now, I'm a school council, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm somewhat, I wouldn't say teacher, but I'm somewhat higher than students. So when teachers say to me, "Oh, I'm going to the printer, cover detention for me,"
Mm-hmm.
I do enjoy it, and
Yeah.
I do enjoy kind of teaching, and I kind of feel like I do have a lot to say. But for me, I want to do I want to work in the city as well, but I also
Mm-hmm.
want to teach. So what would be your advice for someone who's in the same predicament as me?
So I would say go to the city first
Uh-huh.
because you will get lots of different skills, like I said, that set you up to be a good teacher.
Uh-huh.
Um, and being a teacher could make you a good business person, but I think a business person, like having some more outside perspectives,
Uh-huh.
having to deal with different clients and different sorts of people sets you up for success to then be a teacher. Where if you've only gone to school and then to university and then all of a sudden you're on the other side of the table,
Mm.
you maybe haven't had as much experience of juggling, and there is a lot of juggling required in teaching. So I think I've had comments from people of how helpful it is for me to have been in the business world first.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful because also you feel like you know what school is like I did
Yeah.
probably. So
Yeah.
if you become a teacher straight away and you really enjoy it,
Mm.
then you never maybe leave it to go and try the business thing. And you might always have that little itch in the back of your mind and kind of, oh, I wish I had done that. So I would do that first,
Okay.
um, and get some more kind of world experience, have lived some time outside of a classroom or a university room.
Mhm.
Not to say that it's wrong to go straight into teaching, but if the business world is something that interests you,
Yeah.
go out, pick up some different skills that you can also bring into back into the teaching world. That's I found that a good way to do it for me.
So the fourth point I have actually here is unpacking your motivation behind choosing the teacher profession. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like you've already said that. So do you have any more you would like to say, or
I think we would probably have covered it. I think for me, like I said, I liked working with people in my last company.
Yeah.
But typically they were people who were in a position of power, who had probably been presented with quite a lot of opportunities, maybe come from positions of privilege that got them to where they wanted to be.
Yeah.
And it was making pretty successful people slightly more successful.
Yeah.
And so it didn't feel like I was having as much impact as I wanted to have. And I think being a teacher, young people are at the point where all doors are open to them. So the potential to be anything you want to be is huge because you haven't narrowed things down yet. You're learning all the subjects. You obviously start to narrow as you get into your GCSEs, but you have the potential to work hard at anything. And then as you start to drop a subject or mentally give up a bit on a subject, you start to close doors to those opportunities. So for me, the motivation around being a teacher is to help people to work hard to keep as many of those doors open, as many of those opportunities on the table, so that, as I've done, I've had the freedom of choice of working hard, being in a position where I could go to university, where I could specialize in a subject that I enjoyed, and then that led me to a job that I enjoyed. So helping people to seize opportunities but to make the most of their potential as well is my main motivator.
Okay, so talk about motivation. This thing I asked, this question I asked Coach Sterling just popped into my head. How do you motivate the children of today? Because I was speaking to a teacher a couple of weeks ago, and he says from when he started teaching to when he's teaching now, he doesn't see the same spark he does as of when he started teaching. And even being me, I'm only 15 years old, but I do see that myself because when I talk to my nan, who's actually 94, she tells me about all her school experiences, and she also agrees that children of today are they're coasting. They just living at the surface to the point where they're just doing the bare minimum just to survive. I guess maybe that's not the right word, but just to be just at the top. And I think what would be your take on it?
Yeah, so it's one of the things I come back to, and which has helped from my previous crit, is how different people have described motivation. So the main one that sticks in my head, which is quite easy, is you're motivated when you have autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Okay. So autonomy is having the power that you feel like you're doing things by yourself. Someone's not just always telling you what to do. Yeah. Mastery is feeling like you can do it and feeling like you're good at it. We're more motivated to have a go at something when we think the outcome's going to be successful versus continually throwing ourselves at something that we're going to fail at. Failing feels uncomfortable. And then purpose. So I think starting with purpose, I think if students can't see the opportunities that are out there for them, and they think, okay, all I want to be is X, and all I need to do is coast through school, then without that purpose, motivation is even harder to build. So to begin with, showing people why it's important, why, like, at the moment you can still be whatever you want to be, so work hard and keep the doors open. That's the purpose piece. And then also thinking about in lessons, where are we pitching it, what are we doing, because we want to be having some success to be able to feel that mastery. That will motivate us as well, and giving people the space to do it by themselves. Sometimes people will want their hands held a bit more, but actually having some space to like try things in lessons. You're in school, you know what your lessons look like. You'll have sometimes the teacher's telling you something, sometimes you're doing stuff independently. So if you are being successful in that independent space as well, that's giving you the autonomy and you're more motivated to try in your lessons. But really it starts with purpose and trying as much as you can to kind of encourage people to think about what happens beyond school. Why is it important that you have a go now? And then, in the absence of them really engaging with that, I would say helping people feel that they can be successful in things so that they want to put in some more effort, because we feel good when we're succeeding.
Yeah. So another thing I want to ask you is LinkedIn. So I use LinkedIn myself, and I feel like that's one of my main, like if you look at my screen time, I'm probably on LinkedIn the most time out of any app on my phone.
Yeah.
And for me, one of the quotes that stick in my head is, I mean, some would say that it's different, but some would say that you can live by this, but which is, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know.
Yeah.
Some people could say, so, I mean, each to his own on this quote, but me, I love to connect with people on LinkedIn just to share the stories. But a lot of people that on this podcast I met from LinkedIn, same way that I was able to get my JP Morgan work experience was from LinkedIn. What would be
Yeah.
your take on LinkedIn?
On LinkedIn, I think you are right. I think increasingly the world relies on that and on those relationships. I think again it's around those opportunities for yourself. So if I think back to when I started in my career, and I know some people, and when you're at the beginning you wouldn't be able to kind of, you don't have the relationship to ask someone a favor, but now I can see the kind of crossovers in the industry that I used to work in, and how if you know this person you can get a meeting with this person. It helps people. Even if you're not a people person, like we are naturally social beings, so having those connections, having someone that can vouch for you because they've met you before is really important. And it's back to to some extent, one of your earlier questions about AI and replacing things. Humans are always going to want relationships, going to want to have that trust in a way that they won't have with a computer. So anything that can help facilitate relationship building is going to be a good thing for you as an individual. And in some industries, it will be more important than in others. Some people use it a lot. I use it less now. I'm teaching.
Yeah.
But still a useful way, and also just to kind of be connected to other things going on in the world, different people's perspectives, and all of that stuff as well.
Yeah. So this is one of the last quotes I have. I mean, not quotes, points I have left, which is sharing your insights and advice for anyone considering a similar path. What would be your points and advice and insights?
Yeah, so I think my reflections on where I've got to is taking opportunities and then working hard when you have those opportunities. So we don't see school as an opportunity, but it is. So working hard when we are in school, so that we, as I said, are getting the best grades we can to leave as many options open as possible. And then if you don't know what you want to do, a good place to start is to focus your energy in something you enjoy. So think about what you enjoy.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be more motivated to work at that, to work hard at that, and that will lead to opportunities as well. And then the final thing is, don't be afraid if you're not absolutely loving what you're doing to make a change, to try something different, because if you are working hard, those key skills that make you successful in any workplace, so hard work, resilience, communication, empathy for others, will be transferable. So you can take a leap, try something different, and if it doesn't work, try again. So don't be afraid to fail, and throw yourself into whatever is thrown at you.
Yeah. So just before we end this off, that quote, what you just said reminded me of a quote. Let me just try and find it before I end it. Because I said it to someone yesterday. And if I can't find it, then I'll just have to try and remember it. Hopefully I've got a paraphrase on here. So it says, win if you can, lose if you must, but never quit. And for me, I don't tend to respect people that quit. And for me, I try not to quit. Always try to put my head in the game and just keep going to the point that sometimes I may burn myself out. But I try to win. I always try to get first place. And for me, it sounds a little bit harsh, but when I get second place, I'm not really happy because second place is just the first loser. So I think that quote actually fitting with what you're saying. But yeah. But before we end this off, I want to thank you for taking your time and joining me on and taking your seat at the innovators table. And yeah, anything you would like to say before we end?
No, I think it's been a really good conversation.
Yeah.
And it is conversations like this which make me very happy and excited to be a teacher. So thank you for your time today, Tyrell.
Anyways, Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you and good night. Thank you for listening to the Innovator Table with Taro Ferron. If you enjoyed the episode and you'd like to hear more about the work I do, you can head to my link tree, which is in the description below. If you'd like to find me on Instagram, that'll be at emery_ferron. And if you'd rather email me, you can email me at t.ferron@icloud.com. t.ferron@icloud.com.